Good night to the Barbados Labour Party family. First, good night to the people of Chapman Lane. Good night to all the business community in Baxter's Road. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. I want to start this evening with a song, about 8 words of a song. And it goes like this. It says, time is so serious, cantankerous and dangerous. It is only in the Father do I put my trust. We are living in some dangerous times. And during the last week, I want to congratulate my colleagues. And of course, I have to big up the Member of Parliament for the city, my friend. I want to congratulate my colleagues who made the Barbados Labour Party proud in the just concluded estimates in the lower house. We indeed made Chris Sinkler curse the private sector because he cannot and he does not want to accept constructive criticism. He's a big bully, but he has to understand that he's operating out of his debt and his league. So when he hears certain economists speak, he must listen and go back to the drawing boards and implement strategies for the betterment of the people of Barbados. And I want to compliment my colleagues for the sterling contribution that they would have made in Parliament during last week. And I want to further big up the political leader of this party who set the tone last week and who showed the people of this country that the Barbados Labour Party is the government in waiting whenever Fumbles Short decides to call the next election. Give her a round of applause, people. She laid the foundation last week. But I want to spend my half an hour dealing with, and I take off the watch because I'm not a good timekeeper. Put it there so you can look every 5 minutes to see where I am. I want to spend my half an hour looking at health, labor and industrial relations, and of course, human resource management. Last week in Parliament, my speech, second reading speech, was premised on a good society. The Democratic Labour Party came to us, and they know we have very strong economists, and we focus a lot on the economy. Nothing wrong with that. And they said to us that they are building a society and not an economy. So I want to look at my 2 areas and judge the Democratic Labour Party's performance in those 2 areas with respect to a good society. And you, the people of Chapman Lane and New Orleans and Passage Road, and all the businesses listening, and of course the Barbados Labour Party family, I want you to tell me when I'm finished my half an hour if the Democratic Labour Party is building a society or if Barbados is a society in decay. You be the judge of that. And I just want to just mention a few elements of what I think is a good society. And a good society, and in the Barbadian context, is a society where people effectively participate in decision making, in things that affect their lives. A good society is a society where the stakeholders and the social partners have a say. A good society is a society where good governance is the order of the day. And a good society is a society where where people live healthy lives, and policies that have been created, the health policies, are not only policies for the rich, but they are policies that will support the most vulnerable people in this society. And a good society is a society in the Barbadian context where labor policies focuses on creating a healthy workplace and good work-life balance. And you know that the Democratic Labour Party, they have moved away from what we call a good society, whereby government partnered with the labor and the trade unions in this country. And that was the core of that was the national core of Barbados' development at the time. And I will tell you how this party, this great party, led by Sir, the Right Excellent Grantley Adams and Sir Hugh Springer, the trade union movement was birthed in the post-1937 era out of those two gentlemen. So we fought for the masses of this country. But what we are saying today is an anti-labor government, that all of their policies and their strategies are destroying the labor relations, the good labor relations climate that was set afoot by Sir Grantley and Sir Hugh Springer. And by Owen Seymour Arthur, the social partnership was created by Owen Seymour Arthur. But let me move into healthcare. Having said the preamble, what is a good society, you be the judge, because there are certain things that we should not allow to happen in this country. And I want to quote some statistics first, because you have to understand what is really going on in this country, right? In healthcare, I have a report here, and I would like you all to read this report. It is the Barbados Economic and Social Report of 2014. And this report says that the number of deaths in Barbados increased by 303. The number of deaths in Barbados increased by 303 between 2013 and 2014. I am just creating the context. This report also says that the number of persons with diabetes increased by 1,000 in 2 years, from 23,000 to 24,000 from 2010 to 2012. So the number of persons with diabetes would have increased by 1,000. This report also says that the number of persons with stroke, or what we call cardiovascular event. For us, the people from the country, we know stroke. Those, the doctors and things call it cardiovascular event. Increased by 50% over those 2 years, from 2010 to 2012. It increased from 224, the number of persons who suffered stroke, to 348 in those 2 years. I ain't finished yet, Hypertension. The number of persons with hypertension increased from 39,000, and that's a big figure, to 41,000 over that 2-year period. Now, the reason why I'm quoting these figures, because there has to be some correlation between those figures, those increases, and the Democratic Labour Party in conceived health strategy in this country. I am not saying that the Democratic Labour Party is killing people. I am not getting here saying that. But what you have to do for yourself, if you want to come to that conclusion, you look at the stats and you tell the Democratic Labour Party, based on their strategy or an ill-conceived strategy, that the people in this country are contracting more diabetes, more hypertension, more people are dying, and a lot of people are suffering from stroke. Because there is a lack of health strategy coming out of the estimates. I can stand here and I can tell you that I cannot articulate the Democratic Labour Party strategy for health. I cannot. And there are many articles that I can draw from to show that the Democratic Labour Party is not focusing on preventive care and promotion care in health. Preventive care means that you will spend money, and I'm going to get to the QEH shortly, because Chris Sinclair said that the QEH is not underbudgeted, and I have the facts to show that QEH is underfunded. He said in the estimates that QEH is not underfunded, and QEH is underfunded, and I come here tonight with the facts to show you that QEH is underfunded by $40 million. And that is the reason why we are having so much challenges in this country as it relates to health care. Increases in hypertension because the money is not being channeled towards preventive care. It is too reactive. And there is an article that I made, a document at the House, and it speaks to preventive evidence-based and reform health care. But time does not allow me to get into this. But it is saying that we need to spend more money on preventive care than reactive care. We are too reactive. Now, the QEH, like I said, and I'm getting there, the QEH annually, money is allocated to run the QEH. And in these estimates, the 2016, 2017 estimates, $146 million has been allocated to run the QEH. You know how much money is needed to run the QEH? Any of you know? $185 million as a minimum is needed to run the QEH. So clearly you have started with a deficit. So when Chris Sinclair could come on national television and say that the QEH is not underfunded, he is a stranger to the truth. The QEH is underfunded. And let me again reference a document, because some of these issues at the QEH, this is a document that dropped off the back of a truck, and I found it. And I want to use some of the notes that I found from this document that dropped off the back of a truck to let you know the QEH is underfunded, and there are tremendous challenges at the QEH that will impact you and your families, the people that live in Chapman's Lane and New Orleans and Passage Road. When you go to the QEH, as a result of the Democratic Labour Party ill-conceived strategies, your families will be put at risk. And let me just outline a few of these issues with the QEH as a result of the continuous underfunding by the Democratic Labour Party. Let me just list a few. But before I list a few, let me just tell you, when you look at the years, the money that is required to fund QEH, and this is a document, like I said, that dropped off the back of a truck, and I'm going to just read 3 lines of it. It said, existing packages of services currently available at the QEH is underfunded, and in light of increases in relative cost and demand for resources, there is a widening gap between demand and supply of resources. There is a widening gap between demand and supply of resources. This document lists, this is a document that dropped off the back of a truck. I ain't put in the name tag, and I found it. Santia has one. Good night, my dear friend from St. Michael Southeast. Welcome. This document has in it the deficit from 2008, and it shows that under the Democratic Labour Party, they have underfunded QEH every year. And from 2008, coming down by $11 million. We skipped 2009 by 10. 2010, they have underfunded QEH by $23 million. 2011, they underfunded QEH by $28 million. 2012, by $33 million. 2013, by $22 million. 2014, $29 million. And you know, this year, in the estimates, they have underfunded QEH by $40 million. It is getting worse. So it has gone from 11 to 40. But you know why I have a difficulty with this? Because this Democratic Labour Party is using money to fund a whole year of a 50th anniversary celebration. They have Sarah Palin, running around St. George with a broken trident in January. Then it went to St. Joseph or St. Thomas, and it gone somewhere else. For an entire year, you can find money to fund a full year of a 50th anniversary celebration. I am not saying we should not celebrate our 50th year, because the Barbados Labour Party governed this country 24 out of the 50 years. And I just spoke to you about the 1937 era, the post-1937 era, where we fought for the masses in this country. So we have a story to be told, just like the Democratic Labour Party, a better story. But we will not be so rude. We will not be so reckless to pick up taxpayers' money and spend a full year of celebrating the 50th anniversary. We will not be so reckless to take money and pump into David Thompson constituency councils, David Thompson football and constituency councils. We will not be so reckless to do that and not fund QEH. So you see where the issues lie. You telling me whether, at this stage, let me pause and ask you, you think that the Democratic Labour Party is building a good society? They are not. They are destroying this society. It is a society in decay. But let me just tell you briefly, because my time running out and I need to get on these labor issues because we have some tremendous labor issues in this country. Let me just tell you some of the challenges at QEH from this book that drop off the back of the truck. There are major challenges at QEH, and you can see why they are major challenges, because since the Democratic Labour Party came to power, they have underfunded QEH. We, the Barbados Labour Party, made sure that poor people and not only people with money got access to good healthcare service in this country. We made sure that the QEH was the beacon for the provision of health services. It was the go-to place for people in the Eastern Caribbean who came here for treatment. And of course, we have to clap our doctors and our nurses. We have beautiful doctors and nurses in terms of competence. And I want you to give them a hand tonight. It has nothing to do with the nurses and the doctors, because when you're dealt a hand, you've got to play the hand that you're dealt. It has to do with mismanagement and piss poor governance by the Democratic Labour Party. But let me just list a few of the issues here. It says here, staff shortage, including nurses, a high ratio of patient to nurses, making it difficult for nurses to fulfill their duties. It says here, gross inadequacy of financial resources. It says here, long waiting time at accident and emergency as high as 8 hours. But I think the document was a bit conservative, because I know a family member of mine who waited for over 24 hours at accident and emergency and could not see a doctor. And I had to intervene and took up the little resources that I have to send them to a private place. Thank God for us who can do these things. But the people in Chapman Lane and New Orleans don't have the resources to go to a private place. They have to go to QEH. And these are the challenges. And on the funded place, they also said, and let me carry on, quality care compromised by a shortage of resources and equipment. And they listed 2 issues. You know, if you go to the hospital, anybody here from Passage Road, if you go to the hospital and you have a problem with your colon today, you know you don't have the equipment to give you that colonoscopy. So if you have challenges with your colon, you know doctors can't diagnose you. You know you can die. I am not here saying that when you go to QEH, you will die. But I'm saying as a result of the underfunding and you don't have the equipment, you can be at risk. Your life can be at risk. So the people in Chapman Lane and New Orleans and Wellington Street, Jeffrey, all your people in the city, and Joe, all your people must understand that these are the challenges at the QEH. You know they don't have equipment for hip replacement surgery. Trevor Eastman, our good MC, he's waiting for hip replacement surgery. I have people in St. George who are waiting for hip replacement surgery. You don't have equipment. But I will finish off on the whole drug issue at QEH, medication. I see some senior citizens sitting here, lovely and beautiful senior citizens. I know when you go to the polyclinic and you go to the hospital, sometimes you can't get medication. And you know why? It is because of the underfunded of QEH by this government. They have not paid the private pharmacies. So look at it. The private pharmacies suffering like us with a cash flow situation. So they can't bring in any drugs. So the real issue is they have to wait until government give them money. So these are some of the challenges. And we have to understand it has nothing to do with economic recession. It has something to do with the mismanagement and the poor governance displayed by the Democratic Labour Party. You tell me if they're building a good society. Are they? They're not. And those are some of the issues. Time will not permit me to get into psychiatric hospital. But you know, recently you would have seen the accident and emergency services. They came out in the open. It was in the Nation newspaper. And they said they are working in squalor. These are the people who interface with you. Firstly, if you have any issues and you don't have a car, you can't get to the hospital. And people often tell you, don't touch the people, call the ambulance. And the ambulance services, they don't have ambulances. And they're working in squalor. So you know what is going to happen. A man who is demotivated, he can take, if he used to take 5 steps to get in that ambulance to drive to St. Philip, he can take 25 steps to get in that ambulance. And you know what's happening? Your health is deteriorating the longer he stays to get to you. So you have to treat these people with dignity and pride. Restore some confidence in the system because you have some excellent people working in that system. And that is the problem with this government. It is an uncaring government. It is a reckless government. It is a government that is presiding over the societal decay of this country. And we must vote them out. We must vote them out, you know. Don't fool your foot. They are preparing for election. They're testing the waters with several things. You see the health financing to test the waters with? They're testing the waters with several things. We have to prepare. Do not let them come and trick us again like by putting Miss Mapp on a bus. Putting Miss Mapp on a bus and talking about the Barbados Labour Party going to sell off transport board and do this and that, the old people. We are more strategic than that. We look after our citizens, whether old, young, whether from Chapman Lane, whether from Wellington Street, whether from St. Philip, whether from St. George South. Don't matter what age, color, class, or creed. We as a Barbados Labour Party do good by the citizens of our country. That is how we started out in the post-1937 era. But I want to move now to labor. Because you see how the society is in decay in the health service. But it is worse in labor because we have one of the worst ministers of labor. She would go down as the worst minister of labor ever in the history of ministerial governance in this country. And I take back what I say. She will go down in history as the worst. And this great party has always placed good labor relations at the heart of a good society. So we believe that you can't have a good society unless you have good labor relations, because the people are our most valuable asset, and you have to make sure they're happy. We have not had a wage increase in the public sector since 2008, and we must give those public servants a hand because they are working excellently under difficult conditions. I want you to give them a hand. We have not had a wage increase in this country under the Democratic Labour Party. And the pensioners too. Yes, pensioners. But I have never seen such an unhappy labor force in this country before than the last 5 years would have shown me. Unrest, labor unrest. Everybody want to go on strike. As I speak to you, we have the Barbados Water Authority striking because this government reneged on their promises. It is a lack of trust. If you promise the people to give them a wage increase, then the order of the day should be the wage increase. And if you can't give them the wage increase, you should be decent enough to come back to the drawing boards and discuss with the union. Don't come now to tell the people in this country that it will take $37 million. That's after the fact discussion. You have no regard for the people of this country. They have no regard for the people of this country. And it isn't just the BWA. Let us look at the SSA too, because let me put you on a little notice. The SSA has a pending matter as it relates to hazard allowance. And I have the facts here. Hazard allowance, lack of trucks, and other equipment with the NUPW. And they have not put the systems in place that they have promised the NUPW. But what is happening in this country, there are so many issues that the unions, like, they can't bite off all at one time. They have to go one by one. But the one that bothers me, the one that bothers me the most, is the Employment Rights Tribunal. Those NCC workers that were retrenched, you know, up to today, there has been no decision with respect to those workers. But let me explain something to you that is very, very, very disheartening. And you tell me whether we are building a society. We expect that the Employment Rights Tribunal, in their deliberations, would understand that if there's one thing that the NCC workers want and need, and is a priority, is reinstatement and or re-engagement. Reinstatement and or re-engagement. They don't want damages. The people want to get back to work. They want to get back to work. I have to conclude, but I want to conclude on this point because what is happening, it is being said